Let's talk about working with dates in Excel. A very cool feature of Excel is that it is quite smart when it comes to dates. I have this minimalistic data here, so let me just autofit this column. That's much better. Now you see that in my table I have 3 empty cells, and the format of these 3 empty cells is general. I can simply type some text in this cell, and if that text symbolizes a date, or it could symbolize a date, Excel usually is very good at noticing that, and it will change the format to date automatically. So let me put this in cell C2, 2011 and March 14. And now I press enter. Okay, some interesting things happened. So one thing that happened is that indeed the format was changed from general to date automatically by Excel. And another interesting thing that happened is that although I typed 2021-03-14, Excel changed this format to this. So this is how a date is written in the US. Month, day, year. And Excel put forward slashes between the elements. I used year, then month, then day, and I used dashes, but Excel automatically changed it to the American format. Now let's click on this arrow in the number format command group. As you see, you can choose a locale or location. Now my locale is by default English, so United States. Let me change my locale to Germany. So I will just type a G, and I'm here in Galician, so I will just have to go down a bit, and I have German, Germany. Now you see the formatting options already changed. Now let me click OK. And now the format is exactly the same as I put it. Although the formula bar still shows the American format, in the cell itself now we have the format that we set. Now let me switch my locale back to the US. I don't mind working with the US locale, this is what I'm used to, but of course if you don't like it you can always change your locale and use your own locale if you prefer to. Of course, if we go back to the formatting option, then you see that even in the United States locale, so the locale that is chosen, we can have different options. Let me just click cancel, and let's go to the number formatting dropdown. Now what you see is that we are using the short date format basically in this cell. However, we could use the long date format. Now you see a bunch of hashtags, and this is only because Excel cannot show that many characters in such a narrow column, so I can just auto-fit this column. So I hovered my mouse over the border of column C and D, and I double-clicked, and this is how Excel auto-fitted the column so that the contents can be shown. I prefer the short date option, however, so let me change it back. Now let me put 2 other dates here. So maybe let's put 3/15/2021, so the 15th of March, and let me put 4/10/2021, so the 10th of April. Now all the columns have the date formatting. Now this is a good indication that Excel recognizes these values as dates. But just to make sure, I'm going to put a filter on this table. Later in the course, we will discuss filters in more detail. However, at this point, I think it's important that I show you how you can confirm that Excel recognizes your values as dates. Select cell C1. You can select A1, B1, or C1 as well, but let's just select cell C1. Let's select the Data tab in the ribbon. Now Excel can give us these tips, and these can be actually quite useful, but we don't need it now, so let's just click on Got It in case you also have this tip. Now let's go to the Sort and Filter command group. Let's hover over Filter and let's click on it. In the columns of our table, these downward pointing arrows appeared, and it means that we can filter the data in the respective column. So let me click on this one, so in cell C1. And based on this area at the bottom, you see that Excel actually recognizes these values as dates, so you can choose the exact dates. We could filter for the exact dates or exact days. Let me just click on cancel, however, and let me just remove the filter so I can just click on this filter command again. Now we have these 3 dates in our worksheet, but what if we also want to show the time? So what if we want to be even more specific? Of course, Excel provides a solution for that as well, so let's just check the formats. Under the long date, we have the time format. Let's click on it. So in my cell C1, Excel shows 12 a.m., 0 minutes, 0 seconds. However, in the formula bar, you see that the date is also there. Now I can change the time here in the formula bar, so I can just change it to 10 a.m. for example. And as you can see, when I started editing the value in the formula bar, the value in the cell also changed. Let's click on enter, and now I see 10 a.m. in cell C1. Now of course we have options for the time format as well. Let's check them. So I can also show the date with the time. However, notice that the format actually changed to date now, so let's switch it back to time. So Excel can be a bit inconsistent when we are playing around with the time. However, what is important is that you have these options again for changing the time format. You can change your locale, and there are also some custom formats for the time. I have to scroll up a bit, and here you see some formats in the custom group for the time. Let me just close this, and let me just change the format back to date. I will select cell C3, click on Format Painter, and I will paint the format over to cell C2. Now it still shows me the time here. You can see it in the formula bar, but I can just simply delete this info. And now I have only the date. An interesting question is how Excel actually understands a date. And to answer that question, let's select these 3 cells. So I'm holding down the left mouse button and I drag it over to cell C4, and now I release it. And let's change the format of these cells from date to number. Let's decrease the decimals. Now let me select cell C1 and let's check the formats. Look at the short date format. So based on this info, we see that the number 44,269 corresponds to the date 14th of March 2021. Now what happens if I put 1 in cell C4 and change the formatting to date? So now we have January the 1st, 1900. So the way Excel understands the dates is that the number 1 corresponds to 1900, the 1st of January. And then the number 2 is 1 day plus. Let's just confirm that. So I will put a 2 in cell D4. And then I will change the date format, short date. And yes, indeed. So it's January the 2nd, 1900. So the first date that Excel understands is actually this one, so 1900, 1st of January. This is designated by the number 1. Adding +1 to this number 1 increases the days with 1. So we will arrive at the 2nd of January, 1900. And if I put 44,269 in a cell, and then I change the format to date, then we will get the 14th of March 2021. So this means that 44,269 days passed since the 1st of January 1900. I will change this back to number format, and I will decrease the decimals. Now we know that this number designates the 14th of March 2021, and this number designates the date 15th of March 2021. The number is bigger by 1, so we have to add 1 more day to the date. But what happens if I also want to show the time? then I have to use decimals. So the number 1 designates a day, in other words 24 hours. The number 0.5 should designate 12 hours, and the number 0.25 should designate 6 hours. So let me change this number to 0.25. I will increase the decimals. And now let's change the format. Let's select the time format. Indeed, 14th of March 2021, 6 a.m. Let me switch back to number, and indeed this is the number I put there. Now let me put .5 here, so we will have 12 p.m. So exactly what I expected. So if you ever receive a spreadsheet and instead of dates you see these numbers like 44,000 something, whatever, then you have the wrong format for those cells or for that column. This can be very confusing when you don't have much experience with Excel, but of course this is not a big issue, so you can just change the number format to date and then you will have the correct data type.